Hello everyone, I'm Caitlin Teeter, and on today's Teeter Tales, I'm going to be talking about 10 book tropes that I love. Last month, I talked about 10 tropes that drive me crazy in books, so I thought it'd be fun to change it up and this month talk about ones that I enjoy. For this video, I will be giving full spoilers for most of the books that I talk about, so I will have a list in the description of the books that I discuss and mark whether or not I spoil them. As with my previous video, I'm not saying that these are the best plot devices in all of fiction, but that they're merely some of my personal favorites. This also isn't a ranking of the best tropes, so they're not in a particular order. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm a sucker for giving an antagonist a redemption arc. Whether it's a truly evil character or simply a misguided one who's on the wrong side, it's always satisfying to read this trope when it's done well. One example can be found in the Unwanteds series. Throughout the series, Aaron, the twin brother of the main character Alex, causes nothing but problems for the protagonists. Adding on to that, he's very whiny and self-centered, which made him a character that I loved to hate. Within the last few books of the series, though, McMann decided to give Aaron a redemption arc. I thought I wouldn't care about him, but McMann pulled off this story beautifully. She showed the gradual growth that Aaron had, and it made me care about his story, and I was even excited when he joined the good side. Another series which features a few villains turning good is the Redwall series. One of my critiques of this series is actually that it doesn't have enough vermin who become good, and that's largely because when Jacques does take that route, it adds so much depth to the story. A prime example of this would be Romska from the Pearls of Lutra. Romska's story is actually a big part of why Pearls of Lutra is one of my favorite Redwall books. Seeing her slowly change is very satisfying and got me invested in her, and the end of her story is an emotional punch. I love this trope because it can get you rooting for a character, or even make a character you previously disliked someone who you really care for. It allows a writer to explore themes of guilt and good versus evil from a different angle as well. This is a trope that I admittedly don't have that much experience with, but I've loved it when it's been done well. Having a character undergo some sort of physical transformation is a great way for writers to dig into topics like the nature of humanity and what it means to be broken or redeemed. The chief example I would point to for this is the Wingfeather saga. The latter part of this series makes heavy use of this trope, having characters be transformed or partially transformed into human-animal hybrids. Peterson evokes so many feelings with these plot lines, from horror to awe to comfort. In the midst of this, he explores themes of identity, guilt, and regret. Another example is Eustace in the Voyage of the Dawn Treader. Lewis uses Eustace's transformation into a dragon as a means of growing Eustace's character and also developing themes for the story. While Lewis's writing is much more on the nose than Peterson's, I still enjoyed the way he was able to take this admittedly weird concept and give his narrative depth with it. My two favorite aspects of this trope are that it allows writers to explore ideas in new ways, and that it also makes for a much more unique story. I'm eager to see more stories that use this trope well. This is a trope that I have experienced more recently, and I warn you, there will be complete spoilers for the books I discuss in this section. Within the last few years, I have encountered several books that use the strategy of duping the reader by means of the first-person narrator. Essentially, the narrator has been deceiving or withholding key information from the reader throughout the book, and that deception is revealed towards the end of the story. What I love about this trope is that when it's done well, it makes me want to go back and immediately reread the book to pick up on clues that I initially missed. A prime example of this trope is The Murder of Roger Ackroyd. Having been accustomed to Poirot books being narrated by Captain Hastings, I never thought to consider Dr. Shepherd as anything more than a Hastings stand-in. However, the reveal that he was actually the killer and had merely omitted key details and scenes in his narration was satisfying because it made sense. Christie set up the mystery well, but the twist was still a shock. I immediately wanted to go back and reevaluate what I had just read, and I mean that as a compliment. Another example is The False Prince, book 1 in Jennifer Nielsen's Ascendant series. Throughout the book, the reader spends much of their time in the head of Sage, who is being trained to pose as the lost Prince Jaren. The twist of this book is that Sage actually is the missing Prince Jaren, which recontextualizes all of his reactions to the news and opinions on the royal family. The twist was engaging because it added so much depth to Sage or Jaren. It also changed the trajectory of the whole series for the better. The best narrator plot twists leave me saying, "Ah, you got me," to the author. It makes a book even better to know that the writer successfully duped you through the character telling the story. Since I love animals and I love books, I adore when books include a character who loves animals or creatures. I especially enjoy when the character likes to study and learn about those creatures. One example of this is from the Airborne trilogy, with the character of Kate de Vries. While my feelings on Kate fluctuated throughout the series, I always loved when she would geek out about weird creatures. Whether she was studying cloud cats or keeping a baby Arizoan for research, she was at her best whenever she was studying the fantastic creatures of this series. Another example is Alistair Pembroke from the Wingfeather Tales. The world of Erwiar has so many absurd creatures in it, so I love the short story that focused on the in-universe author of Pembroke's Creaturepedia. Much of Pembroke's charm for me lies in his spouting of random creature facts and the way he often uses that as a lens of giving descriptors. Reading about a character so comically involved in creature study makes the story so much more enjoyable. I love the fictional creatures of stories I read, so having characters that share that interest makes a book much more engaging for me. I absolutely adore this trope, specifically in the context of fantasy. Having a dangerous or presumably dangerous creature that the protagonist gradually befriends is very fun to read. Seeing the bond form between a character and an animal builds my investment in both of the characters and in the story. A recent example that I read is from the Fireborn epic. While I do enjoy the bond between Ceridwen and Mindar, I was more invested in the relationship between Rafie and Ghost. The story begins with Ceridwen and Mindar already being an inseparable pair, but the book follows the slow process of Rafie and Ghost coming to trust and rely on each other. Because I get to witness this bond form between the two, I was deeply invested in their story. Showing how Rafie gradually connects with Ghost made me get a better appreciation for Rafie's character and also gave me an understanding of Ghost as an individual. I love the dynamics of dangerous creatures befriending the protagonists. To form this sort of bond, the intricacies of a character must be on full display. That's just one of the reasons that this is a favorite trope of mine. I love when songs are used in a book as an effective plot device. Through songs, a writer can convey so much. It could tell the reader about the personality or tendencies of a character, it could convey the culture of the group doing the singing, or it could even provide some much needed context for the story and introduce elements of world building. The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit use songs very well. While it could be argued that some of the songs are too long or unnecessary, I love the songs that Tolkien includes in his works. Having songs like The Misty Mountains tells the reader about the dwarves and their deep desire to reclaim their mountain. The songs sung by the hobbits demonstrate their isolation from the outside world and also their carefree spirits they have going into this dangerous adventure. Each of these songs serves a purpose and draws me further into the story while making the world feel fuller. Another series which uses songs less frequently but no less effectively is the Wingfeather saga. Songs like Jurgen's Tune provide important lore and also play a vital part in the narrative. Other songs like My Love Has Gone Across the Sea are significant to the characters and convey so much more than simple dialogue could. Final example is the Redwall series. While some of the songs are definitely stronger than others, I love how Jacques is able to convey a sense of culture within the music. The Gaussum Shrews have water songs that match their boisterous, argumentative personalities. The Hares have marching ballads that fit their militaristic style, and Redwallers have softer songs of the seasons that are befitting of a peaceful abbey community. I know not everyone likes songs in books, but I for one love them. A writer can do so much with a song, and as long as the song serves a purpose within the story, I will likely appreciate it. This trope has more to do with world building than with characters or story. I've come across many magic systems in books, but my favorites are often those that take creative or artistic expressions and give it power. An example of this is the Weaver Trilogy. The premise of this series is that storytellers have the ability to create physical objects from the stories they tell, weaving strands of light into hardened shapes. Other types of creative expression, such as singing or art, also have their own power. This is a unique take on a magic system, and I loved how the story really leaned into making that magic the base around which the narrative is built. Another series with a magic system within the same vein is the Unwanteds. Unlike the Weaver trilogy, no one is forced into one particular type of magic or locked out of magic. Instead, developing one's skills in a creative expression increases their proficiency with that type of magic. This made for a fun series that got to play with different rules and types of magic while also making room for progression and new magical discoveries. The reason I find this world building trope so fun is because it gives a lot of freedom to the writer. Yes, a rule set does need to be established, but when magic comes from creativity, new avenues of using that magic are constantly being discovered. It keeps the series feeling fresh while also having fun connections to real world creativity. This is a trope that I enjoy largely because its opposite irritates me. I love it when books allow kids or teens to be on good terms with adults. I much prefer seeing characters of varying ages working together rather than butting heads. This is one aspect that I really appreciate about the early books in the Keeper of the Lost Cities series. Characters like Alden, Grady, and Edeline often served roles of friends and supports for Sophie and the other kids. The first several books leaned into these relationships and were stronger for them. That's why the later books have been frustrating for me, because the kids and adults now actively try to avoid working together. Seeing healthy friendships of mutual care, regardless of age, made the first several books so much better. Another series that does this well is Redwall. The series has protagonists from a variety of ages. Even in book 1, Matthias is clearly meant to be young, but his closest friend is Methuselah, the ancient mouse. These sorts of dynamics are common throughout the series, from Rassa and Tamo to Sprigget, Samkin, and Arula. These relationships are just one of the many reasons that I still love the Redwall series. Getting to see healthy relationships flourish regardless of being young or old is something I never tire of seeing in books. I find it much more constructive to promote these sorts of friendships rather than relegating characters to their age groups. This trope sounds very broad, but I actually have a highly specific take on this trope that I enjoy. Not only do I like to see characters who have traumatic experience striving to overcome those challenges, but I specifically like to see this occur with adult characters. Too often I find that when a child or teen character is given a trauma arc, it feels forced as a means of introducing angst. That's not to say it can't be done well, but I find that it's harder for writers to pull off. Thus, I prefer when this trope is done with adult characters. I'm also not a fan when tons of the characters in a book have stories dealing with past trauma. But I prefer when a single character can grapple with their past, as it gives the writer a chance to dive deeper into that character's struggle. A favorite example of mine is Artham from the Wingfeather saga. Artham is tormented by horrible experiences of his past, but also by the guilt and shame he feels in the role he played in those experiences. Peterson digs into Artham's thoughts, showing how he can go from being completely composed to spiraling into reliving those nightmares. A big part of why Artham is such a compelling character is that Peterson does not present an easy fix. Artham gets better, but then relapses back into his guilt. Artham's character takes steps forward, but also takes steps back, making his journey more real. He doesn't just get over his past, but he has to work for every success and needs others to come alongside him and help. He also avoids getting simplified by a single emotion, as Peterson shows a wide range of feelings and thoughts warring within Artham. Another character with a compelling battle with his past is Amos from the Songkeeper Chronicles. In a similar vein to Artham, Amos has a past that is both traumatic, but that he also feels great guilt over. For much of the series, Amos's battle is waged internally, but things only get worse as he tries to suppress his past and not deal with it. It can be hard to read his struggles, but that makes his battle to overcome these challenges more satisfying. And again, the story rings true in how it acknowledges that he can't overcome this by himself. This is a trope that can make me fall in love with a character. I love this character type, and these characters are often my favorites within their own respective stories. Test. I will admit, a lot of books use this trope. I love to see characters who are either physically small or considered insignificant going on a quest or a dangerous journey. The prime examples of this trope are, of course, both The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. The hobbits themselves fit within the small, insignificant character trope, and both of these stories have them going on big, dangerous adventures. What makes this trope work so well is that the reader can get more invested in the hobbits than if they were a bunch of elite elves. It makes their triumphs more meaningful and, in many ways, even more realistic. Seeing Sam and Frodo take the ring to Mordor is much more significant than if Aragorn had been the one to take the ring. Another book that uses this trope is Watership Down. The rabbits are clearly out of their element in their journey to a new home. Because they are so small and vulnerable, it both increases the tension to the story, but also makes me root for them even more. The triumphs of Hazel and the others are all the more satisfying for their seeming insignificance. This trope is admittedly a much more common one, but that doesn't make me love it any less. While having an adept, skilled protagonist can be rewarding in its own right, the stories where the small, seemingly weak characters overcome adversity are often the most inspiring. Those are just some of the tropes and plot devices that I love. While it's possible for these tropes to be done poorly, I find that books that use some of these tropes tend to be my favorites. Are any of these tropes ones that you especially enjoy? Or are there any others that you have a particular liking for? I'd love to hear about some of your favorite tropes down in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Bye!